welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. We're happy to have all of our guests here today. We begin with an invocation by Randall Howard, President and CEO, R.D. Howard Construction, followed by the national anthem played by Wesley Gentle, President and Executive Director, Arts Fort Worth. Randall?
May we bow our heads. Heavenly Father, maker and creator of our universe, we come to you this afternoon thanking you for allowing us to see another day. We thank you for a certain degree of health and for strength and for the activity of our bodies. We thank you for another opportunity to come together as fellow Rotarians and for relationship building. Thank you for the leaders of our club and for each and every sacrifice that they make on our behalf. While we pause to say thank you, just like children, we always find ourselves asking for more. Heavenly Father, as we look out within and beyond these walls, we see a world filled with challenges. We ask that you allow each member of this organization, individually and this organization collectively, to continue to be a force for positive change, not only here in Fort Worth, but across the nation and around the world. We ask that you give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding for the needs and plights of others. As we celebrate Black History Month, we ask that we all value the history and contributions of each other, including African Americans, as part of this stitched together quilt that makes up these United States of America. We ask that you give our elected leaders locally and nationally the ability and desire to do the same in an effort to create a world of fairness and peace and show respect for your heavenly will. Last, we thank you for this tasty food that we always have and those who prepared it and served it to us. Amen.
Thank you, Randall and Wesley. Here to welcome our guest is Tim Holden, who's making his way to the front.
Thank you, President Ann. Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. We're going to ask all the guests to stand up and be recognized as we read off your name. We have today Jerome Powell, guest of Jim Witten. We also have Ty Williams, guest of Juan Manuel Acosta. We also have Manny Rodriguez, guest of Juan Manuel Acosta. Keith Jones is here as a guest of Karen Telshaw Johnson. Bill Jacobs is here as a guest of Kevin Chachatsky. Dean Zombakis is a guest of David Campbell. Brian Lacos, guest of Stephanie Rayside. Angela Kinney is guest of Garrett Hadley. Thank you all and welcome, and we hope you enjoy your stay here at the Rotary Club today.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. It is a tradition of our club to repeat the Rotary four-way test, a guideline for how we as Rotarians live, act, and work. Please join me. Number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you very much. You may recall that we have conducted a new campaign, the Four-Way Donor Initiative, in which we requested support from our members for 4 of the 5 of our philanthropies, our 3 endowments, the Children's Fund, Endowment Fund, and Veterans Fund, and 1 of 2 Rotary International opportunities, the Annual Share Fund or Polio Plus. This was our first time asking for such a commitment, and we weren't sure how it would go. The question is, how did we do? And as our friend Ed Macklin might say, I'm glad you asked. We had 43 four-way donors contributing $250 or more to 4 of the philanthropic funds. 67 gold badges, which is earned by making a contribution of $100 or more, and 72 donors in all. Keep in mind that last year we had 24 donors, so bravo to all who stepped up and tripled our number of donors. Thank you. As you can see, the Children's Fund had gifts of $5,784, Endowment Fund 2633, Veterans Fund 3333, Rotary International Annual Fund 3700, and Polio Plus had 1676. Plus, we had a generous donor who agreed to match gifts dollar for dollar up to $10,000, which means we raised a grand total of $27,076. Thank you so much to all of our donors. Your gifts, thank you, thank you. The applause just keeps coming. It's wonderful. Your gifts make it possible for the Rotary Club of Fort Worth to grow our grants allocations to nonprofits. And a special thank you to Brenda Beveridge and the Philanthropy Committee for their work in establishing the Four-Way Donor Initiative. If you missed out, never fear. There will be another opportunity in May. Or if you're so moved, you can give any time. It's never too late. This has been another week of breaking news. Here to share a lighter look at the news is veteran newscaster, past president Fernando Costa, principal Costa Consulting. Fernando.
Thank you, President Ann. Thank you, folks. I feel about as welcome as Prince Andrew at the Royal Palace today. But this isn't about my feelings, it's about the news of the week. In business news, the makers of the robot vacuum cleaner Roomba have filed for bankruptcy. The analysts say that the company got itself into a corner and couldn't get out. Tourism officials in Buffalo, New York have launched a new marketing campaign featuring a picture of the city and the phrase "polished grit," which replaces a previous slogan, "uninhabitable 8 months a year." A New Jersey man was arrested at Miami International Airport the other day after authorities found more than 80 pounds of cannabis products in his luggage. His lawyers say that he flew on Spirit Airlines and had no other way to get through the flight. The dairy brand Tillamook recently collaborated with the makers of QP Japanese mayonnaise to produce a popular new hybrid spread called Butternaise. Meanwhile, consumers are experiencing a new hybrid sensation called stroke heart attack. At the Winter Olympics in Milan, the LGBT dating app Grindr has been providing upgraded privacy features for residents of the Olympic Village. Observers say that the app has been particularly popular among biathletes. And speaking of winter sports, the frozen foods brand Ore-Ida has released a limited edition line of skis that are designed to look like French fries. So now you and your health can both go downhill. In lifestyle news, a survey of empty nesters has found that approximately 50% of parents expect daily text messages from their children after they move out. The other half are dads. According to a new report from the Recording Industry Association of America, the Eagles album, their greatest hits 1971 to 1975, has sold more than 40 million units and is the best-selling album of all time. As it turns out, that's mainly because those of us who were around back then keep forgetting that we've already bought the album. A Michigan man recently dropped an engagement ring through the grates of a bridge while proposing to his girlfriend. On the bright side, he doesn't need it anymore. Footwear maker Birkenstock has unveiled a new bridal collection featuring fancy sandals priced at $3,500 a pair. And for the groom, well, evidently there is no groom. Okay, let's spice it up a little bit. Believe it or not, a hospital in France was evacuated recently after a male patient arrived with a live World War I artillery shell in his rectum. Yeah, so men, watch what you eat and don't go so long between doctor visits. Authorities in Tempe recently arrested nearly 250 persons at a bar near Arizona State University for underage drinking. And just to be fair, Arizona State University for underage drinking is the school's full name. The college baseball season has just started, with the preseason top 25 listing Texas at number 3, TCU at number 10, and Texas A&M at number 25. And speaking of Aggies, a young graduate from the A&M School of Agriculture goes into a farm supply store and orders 200 chicks, explaining that he intends to start a chicken farm. 2 weeks later, he returns to the store and buys another 200 chicks. Store owner is curious, but doesn't say anything. The same thing happens when the Aggie returns in another 2 weeks for another 200 chicks. When he goes for the fourth time, the owner asks the Aggie why he keeps coming back for so many chicks. The Aggie says, well, I must be doing something wrong, but I don't know what. I'm either planting them too deep or too close together. Puzzled by his lack of success, the Aggie sends a report back to A&M and asks for advice. 3 weeks later, he receives a reply, "Please send soil sample." The weather for this weekend should be sunny and mild with highs around 60 and lows around 40. Regardless of the forecast, may the road rise to meet you, may the wind be always at your back, may the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may the good Lord hold you in the palm of his hand. Have a good weekend.
Hard to follow that. Hard to follow that. Thank you very much, Fernando. And here to give us news of a special Rotary activity is Russell Jacobson, who is running up here. Wonder if that is a clue. Russell, tell us about the Cowtown.
Thank you very much. It always makes my day whenever you do the newscast. You're my favorite, and not only because he's doing the 5K with us next Saturday, the 28th. So the Community Service Committee puts together a team every year to compete in the 5K, but it's really about the children that the CAF program and the Cowtown supports, providing shoes for the children of DFW that in most cases cannot get it. So just here to encourage all of you to contact me. You sign up as an individual and then reach out to me and I can get you added to the team. Fernando is one of the ones who is always there every year. It's not about the time that you can try to get, it's just going out there, supporting the community and supporting the kids. So it's next Saturday, the 28th. It's at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is early, but that means you get it done before the rest of your day. So I'd appreciate it. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Russell. And now, please welcome to the stage Mike Baylor, CPA, who will be making a grant presentation on behalf of the Grants Allocation Committee. Mike?
Today, I'm making a presentation to United Community Centers, and this is Celia Esparza, who is the president and CEO. And Celia made a, go ahead and, okay. And Celia did a kind thing, and she has a nice little script because she wants to do two things. One, let us know what does United Community Centers do, and secondly, to thank us for our gift. So I'm going to read this so I don't mess it up. All right? All right. United Community Centers prepares pre-kindergarten children for kindergarten and supports students from kindergarten through 6th grade so they can excel in literacy. United Community Centers serves children from racially and ethnically marginalized communities. Because of their at-risk status, many of these students face challenges in both reading and social development. Data shows that 88% of the families United Community Centers serves are low income. More than half live below the poverty line, and 75% of the households are led by single mothers. United Community Centers is committed to helping the community and families. When United Community Centers, with the support of Rotary, invests in children, it helps prepare them for a stronger future. Reading, math, and understanding their own history are essential for their academic growth. Every day, United Community Centers sees children struggle in school, and that can make their future feels uncertain. But there are also moments of hope. Each time a child moves one step closer to reading proficiency, your funding helps create those moments. It gives children the support they need to succeed in reading and opens the door to many more academic opportunities. So we're making a gift from the Children's Fund of $10,000 to United Community Center.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mike, and congratulations to United Community Centers, Celia. We appreciate your work and are very proud to support you. Secretary Karen Telshaw Johnson, owner-principal of Telshaw Johnson Law, has some second readings because our membership is growing. Karen.
Yeah, great job, everybody. Okay, so the first one, Brandon Kyle Shikotsky, title, Associate Professor, Company, TCU Neely School of Business, classification, Higher Education, and proposer, Ed McGlynn. I move his election subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second? We have the second. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Welcome, Brandon.
Congratulations. Yay! Number 2, last but certainly not least, Braden Lambrecht, title, Account Executive, Broker, Company, Dallas Commodity Company, classification, Finance, and proposer, Mac Kimball. I move his election subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
We have a motion. Is there a second? I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? The motion carries. Welcome, Braden.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and congratulations to both Brandon and Braden. We're glad to have you as part of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. And speaking of new members, we have a blue badge presentation today to a new member who has completed his 6 acts of service. Join me in congratulating Evan Lewis, who is making his way to the front to receive his blue badge. Congratulations. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. We have a wonderful speaker today, and here to introduce our speaker is Joe Michaels, Managing Principal, Solomon Bruce Consulting, LLC. Joe?
Thank you, Madam President. It is indeed my distinct privilege and high honor to introduce our speaker today to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. Dr. Pia Arrhenius is a labor economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, working on regional economic growth and demographic change. Her academic research focuses on labor market impacts of immigration, unauthorized immigration, and United States immigration policy. She is a co-author of the book Beside the Golden Door, U.S. Immigration Reform in a New Era of Globalization. Dr. Arrhenius was a senior economist on the Council of Economic Advisors in the Executive Office of the President of the United States in Washington. In 2004 and 2005, she advised the Bush administration on labor, health, and immigration issues. She holds an earned PhD in economics from the University of California at Los Angeles and bachelor's degree in both economics and Spanish from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. It is indeed my privilege to present Dr. Arrhenius.
Thank you, Jen. Well, thank you for the kind introduction. And just need to get the slides up. Sorry to make a dramatic entrance. It's hard to come to Fort Worth these days. Y'all are famous. There's movies, and I mean, you just come here for rodeo. Now it's like movies, and I got all kinds of stuff going on in Fort Worth. So, but it's really fun to be back. Thanks for having me back. I brought 2 things for you. We just finished writing, actually, before I start my presentation, this publication called At the Heart of Texas. I have a few out there for y'all, but I can certainly send you one if you give me your business card. It is a wonderful publication, and I also brought handouts of just the Fort Worth chapter, which is of all the metropolitan areas that are featured in this publication, Fort Worth is the one from the last time we put out At the Heart. Fort Worth is the one that changed the most. So I mean, because we ride on Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, all around the state, all the major metros. But the revisions to the Fort Worth chapter were the most dramatic. So there's been a lot of things that have changed here. It's just so fun and great to be back. So today's presentation is really about the economic outlook. And so we'll get started. Obviously, the comments, what you hear today, those are my own opinions, and they don't reflect the Federal Reserve. So the theme was, well, I kind of jumped here, but you see the roller coaster. That was the theme for this year's outlook, just because last year feels like a roller coaster. And like this morning, if you saw the news, like that's another roller coaster. So all these tariffs that we've been living apparently are unconstitutional. So there you go. So getting ready to ride the roller coaster, y'all. Put your safety belts on. Texas economy actually slowed in 2025. So output growth was below average. It was okay, but below average for Texas because we tend to grow very quickly. And job growth was actually not much above zero. We're still revising the number, but it was a disappointing year for job growth. There's a lot of reasons, that there was slower growth last year and less job growth in particular, and I think we talked about tariffs. I mentioned those. Also, falling immigration, admittedly from very high levels, but now to very rapidly lower levels, and so that's going to impact economic growth. Federal government cutbacks, of course, widespread policy uncertainty. I think those were all things that weighed on growth last year, both in Texas and the U.S. A couple of things particular to Texas was that we also had job losses in energy. I mean, energy did well. We had record oil production, record gas production last year, but they can do so much more with less people and, less drilling because wells are so efficient now and so productive. So we had job losses in energy. Oil prices kind of fell throughout the year last year, and then we still have downsizing in high tech, not in AI-related high tech, but in the rest of high tech, we still have kind of some downsizing. That's another industry that has a lot of productivity growth. The last thing, which actually is a true downturn, is the downturn in residential construction. So that's something we're watching closely. Housing prices on average are actually falling in the state. So, and actually rents are falling too. So, not a lot of incentive to build right now. And so we're seeing builders are on the sidelines. But I mean, the good news is that the outlook for 2026 is actually calls for a bit of a pickup in growth, especially we're expecting to go back to some job growth. The main reasons for the momentum that's driving the economy this year is similar to last year, momentum in AI, AI investment in particular. And then, of course, with that, the data center construction. So we've become in Texas, number 2 in the nation for data center construction, and it's just through the roof. So that's very important. That's going to carry forward. Fiscal policy is very stimulative this year. Experts are saying that just the provisions from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act are going to add between 1/2, or a little bit more percentage points to GDP growth this year. So it's a lot of fiscal stimulus. Maybe less if they have to pay back the tariffs. We'll have to see how that goes. That's $300 billion. Also, easier financial conditions. We've had a very lofty, stock market, and that's associated with something we call the wealth effect, and that is correlated with spending and consumption. And then, frankly, deregulation, particularly in certain sectors like banking and energy, are also thought that they're going to unleash some investment and hence economic activity. Let me see if I can move this forward. There we go. The World Cup is another boost, obviously. I think we're going to have 6 games here in Arlington. And I think Houston, I'm not sure how many, if they're also having 6, but somebody mentioned to me, it's like, well, each one of these World Cup games is like a Super Bowl. So it's a big deal for the economy. I think they're saying something like nearly 4 million people are coming to Texas to see the World Cup. Headwinds looking forward, before we get into the charts, again, labor supply constraints, a lot of those are from less immigration, dramatically less immigration, also less migration. We're seeing a little bit of a slowing of migration from other states to Texas. Residential housing markets, as I mentioned, we're watching those. Oil prices right now, they're a little bit up because of the threats to Iran, but I think in general, because of high inventories and lots of production, we don't expect, we think that the oil price effect right now is transitory. And then, of course, we're watching cuts to safety net programs. And lastly, in Texas, we have a lot of manufacturers that are part of the USMCA program. So it used to be called NAFTA. This is our free trade agreement with Mexico and Canada. It's a big deal to be able to move your stuff back and forth without having to pay tariffs. But the USMCA is poised for review that starts in July. So there's, that's another source of uncertainty for Texas. Okay, let me show you some of these charts. I know you remember from last time, this is the death by charts presentation, so bear with me. So this was really the most shocking, as we prepared for the Texas Economic Outlook this year, the fact that that Texas job growth was so low last year. So I think, these numbers keep getting revised and revised and revised. I think even now, we just got a third quarter benchmark, so it might be a little bit higher than 0.1. But again, it's a very small number for us. We're used to growing at 2%. 2% job growth in Texas, that's our average, really over the last 20 years. So this is a big change for us. Interestingly, though, is that let's look at it by metro too. We can see, on average 0.1, but here, if you look across metropolitan areas, you can see that really Austin and Fort Worth had better growth than Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. San Antonio is kind of hit by the decline in leisure and hospitality. There's been less tourism to the U.S., especially from Canada. Not sure why that could be. They're mad at us. So the Canadians are not going to San Antonio. But there's other, international travel is down a little bit and bookings are down, and I think they're feeling it a little bit in their leisure and hospitality sector. But the interesting thing is, so we didn't have much job growth last year, but we had, quite a bit of GDP growth. I mean, it's a little bit below our average, but for the U.S., 2.5% is really good GDP growth. This year, it's expected to be even higher than that. It is a good outlook, but the interesting thing is when you're not adding a lot of jobs, but you have robust output growth, that means it's a higher productivity, right? You're getting more work done with each person. We don't really think that the productivity boom that we're living right now it's not quite yet AI. We don't think that we're seeing AI in the data yet in terms of the productivity data. Actually, productivity growth went up after the pandemic. With all the changes that happened in the wake of the pandemic, a lot of companies invested in technology, there was remote work, there was a lot of reallocation from kind of older sector to newer sectors. And there was a lot of business formation, a huge increase in business formation. All those things kind of drove productivity. So I think it's been higher really for the last 3-4 years, even before AI. So it's kind of shocking if you listen to some people, they think that on top of what right now we're having maybe close to 2.5% productivity growth. And if you think AI is going to add 0.5 point or a point to that, and you can see everyone has different projections, that's a lot of growth. So, it's hard to get your head around the AI stuff because we've never seen anything like it, at least in my lifetime. So, the other interesting thing about the low job growth is that it hasn't meant higher unemployment. So if we look a year ago, I think Texas was at 4.1% unemployment. We're the blue line here. The U.S. is red. Again, U.S., Texas, we're at 4.3% headline unemployment, which is pretty low. We think it's close to the natural rate of unemployment. We don't think it represents any slack per se. However, I'm also showing you there are two lines up higher in this chart. That's the U6 measure. And that's a different measure of the unemployment that takes into account people who are working part-time because they can't find full-time work, or people who have dropped out of the labor market because they couldn't find a job. So it's a broader measure. Now that broader measure has gone up. it has gone up. So there's where you can see, that's something you have to watch. It's something that, could be, we're thinking we're moving towards stabilization of labor markets here in 2026, but, you have to watch those other indicators. And if you look at certain groups, for example, the unemployment rate of Black Americans, for example, has gone up a lot more than other groups. If you look at young workers, especially college-educated workers, usually their unemployment rate is very low, but it's also, it looks like it's a group, in that particular case, impacted by AI. College graduates, I don't know if do you have any unemployed college graduates in your family? Okay, that's good. Let's talk a little bit more about migration. As you can see here, first of all, the reason we're able to grow faster in terms of we're usually growing at 2% job growth is because we have a lot of immigration and a lot of migration to Texas, right? So here I'm kind of showing you the census data. You can see each year it's a stacked bar. It's got international migration in the light blue and domestic migration in the dark blue. And you can see clear drop down from 2024 to 2025. So that's almost a 50% decline. And then we expect another 50% plus decline into 2026. You can see that most of the decline is in the international immigration, the light blue portion of the bar, but we're also seeing some edging down of the domestic migration. So this is really what's going to be an issue, and it was an issue in coming up with the forecast for this year, because you're like, well, we're forecasting job growth. We're not forecasting GDP growth at the Dallas Fed for Texas. And so, we're, and I'll give you the forecast here in a minute, but, in order for our forecast to come true, which we're kind of saying we're going to resume job growth here in 2026, we're going to need people, people to take those jobs. So probably combined with a little bit of migration, and then also, but some people are going to have to come off the sidelines. Some people that are not working are going to have to come into the labor force in order really for us to reach our forecast. Here's just another picture using different data for domestic migration. This has it by state, so you can see sort of Florida and Texas on top. We're usually bringing people in. We're net positive every year on domestic migration. People moving here from other states, where are they moving from? You can see New York and California in particular. On the bottom, they're consistently in negative territory because they're losing population as people move out on net. What's really going to affect, international immigration affects us in Texas, but it really affects New York and California, because those are two states that only grow through international immigration because they're losing people domestically. So that's a big deal for them, even bigger than it is for us. On construction and real estate, well, here's the fun part. We got some cool data for you. First, let me take you back. It's hard to read this chart. It's not showing correctly. What it's supposed to show you is job growth by industry. So I told you on net, we didn't create many jobs last year, but one industry that really grew was construction. In fact, most of the jobs, the most jobs that of any industry was that added jobs was in construction. So that's interesting. So what is it? What are we building? I already told you it's not residential. So in this is the construction contract values. You can see that orange line is heading down in 2025. That's residential. A single family and multifamily activity is going down. So that's not why we're growing in construction. Anybody want to take a guess? Data centers. All right, it's coming, but we have to kind of build it, let's build it. So here's the other category, non-residential. So data centers are in this one, as are warehouses and manufacturing plants and semiconductor plants and all that. Those are in there. You can see that's been really trending up, in particular, quite quickly from since 2021. That huge spike there is those semiconductor plants that we started building in Texas. I think it was 2 that year. That was related to the CHIPS Act. But so those are in this data series. And before I show you the data centers, I'll show you the other category, which is infrastructure. We call it non-building. That's the green line. So that's going to include things like power plants, water infrastructure, which is what we've been building, 2025, that big spike. If you go back to 2022, I think it is, 2021, that's the Rio Grande LNG export facility down in the Port of Brownsville. So that's another, we have a lot of LNG export facilities. Y'all know this because, the natural gas is produced, over here. So we have a lot of natural gas in Texas. And so there's a lot of room, to be able to, have plenty for us and export as well. That's why we're building all these LNG export facilities. But back to data centers, this is what data center data looks like. This is just the construction values, okay? This is not even beginning to look at the value of the equipment that goes into these data centers. So all the servers and chips and everything that are in the data centers is a different number. That's probably in the hundreds of billions. This is just 11 billion, the value of construction of data centers in Texas last year. And when you look by state, you can see we are second, as I mentioned earlier, after Virginia. So, it doesn't look like, we're not getting any smaller, we're getting bigger. Honestly, when you look at the trajectory of this line, it's just like a vertical line. It's like, how many data centers are we going to build? And what are going to be the implications of that? Anyway, so then, yeah, you can see, we are a very popular destination for investment in data centers. And we'll get back to this in a minute. I'm going to show you electricity prices, because that's one concern people have around data center construction is what it's going to do to power prices. So we'll get back to that in a second. I just wanted to, for a minute, just show you, I mentioned earlier before we stopped the construction part of this, the construction part of this presentation, I just wanted to show you house prices. So this is the Case-Shiller, is that light blue line, and then there's the other dark blue line is the FHFA, another price index for Texas. Those are really the two best price indexes, and the Case-Shiller is in negative territory, and the other one is, close to getting close. If you adjust even the dark blue line for inflation, you'll be in negative territory. So house prices, and there's lots of other measures. Maybe you look at the multiple listing service, the median house price in Texas, and again, that's from the real estate, data that we have that also shows prices are falling. So that's a concern. It's high mortgage rates and lack of affordability are some of the main reasons for that. And I think, oh yeah, this is ours, DFW. I didn't have it for just Fort Worth, but this is just to show you that these are single family permits there in the dark blue line, and you can see the other line is multifamily permits. So this is how much building is coming in. This just shows you that the pipeline of building has declined here in North Texas. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the demand on energy. So I don't know, do you guys ever look at ERCOT? ERCOT website is a great landing page. They show supply and demand of electricity. So, for an economist, it's like going to heaven. You die, go to heaven, and you see a supply and demand curve, right? You're so happy. So this is what they're projecting for demand. So we're like the solid line right now. The projection is the dotted line. So let's focus on the adjusted forecast. That's the blue dotted line. So that's quite a bit of increase in demand that's projected by ERCOT relative to where we've been. Like our line looks very flat compared to what we're looking out at. And so this specifically is peak grid demand. So if you think of the electricity generation, most hours of the day, most days of the week, most days of the year, we have excess electricity. It's just sitting there doing nothing. But when the grid really matters is when we reach this peak grid demand. So that's like a super hot summer day. Or Winter Storm Uri, if you remember that, right? We were not able to keep up with peak grid demand in Winter Storm Uri. So the concern now is how do we go from like 85 gigawatt of peak grid demand to what's really looks like 145. So I'm sure there's a plan out there. But a big reason for this, The plan is for a lot of these data centers and other large users like semiconductor plants, the plan is for them to build their own backup power, right? That's the plan. Build your own, and then hopefully the really ambitious plan is that the grid, when they need it, they can go and tap into your little private power plant that you have in your backyard. So that's the dream, right? But yeah, this is kind of what we're up against. But the most interesting thing is so far we've done really well keeping up with demand, because this is electricity prices, and these are adjusted for inflation. But you see in Texas, they've actually gone down since 2015. I mean, so this is not just residential, it's commercial, industrial, and residential, but our electricity prices have not been rising, like they have in California, which is not a data center place. So what's running up the electricity prices in California is not data center demand. That's actually mostly transmission and distribution. A lot of their transmission and distribution has been destroyed in wildfires. That has to be rebuilt. So they're facing those costs. But Virginia there, the orange line, that's an example of where we think actually, yes, data center demand is beginning to affect electricity prices, like even residential electricity prices. So, you certainly read about that. People are, that's controversial. And lastly, on the energy section, just on the oil prices, just to show you, so this doesn't really include the last couple of weeks when we've seen oil prices are probably now closer to 65, but again, we think that's related to the Iran situation. The other thing I wanted to show you on this chart is really the two prices for natural gas. So we're the solid green line here in Texas, and then the dotted one is European natural gas prices, and you can just see it's that arbitrage opportunity between the low prices we pay here, because we have so much natural gas, and the high price you can fetch in Europe and also in Asia and other places. This is why those LNG plants are so key. And that's why the natural gas we produce in the Permian is so important. And that's why we need more pipelines to take it to the port and liquefy it and ship it out. So just wanted to show you that. Very briefly on tariffs, this is not Texas data. I just wanted to kind of update you on tariffs because you might be saying, okay, last year we had a lot of tariffs imposed. What was the impact on that? Well, tariffs is a tax. It's a tax on imports. So imports went down. That's that first bar. So imports to the U.S., if you cut out kind of the front running period, fell 2.8% last year, as far as we can tell. So that's very unusual, right? Because we grew, but we had less imports. Imports from Canada fell 11%. Canada really got impacted by the steel and aluminum tariffs. Imports from China fell 41%. That's a huge impact. What's special about China is that there was a lot of retaliation. So most countries did not retaliate against the US for leveraging tariffs, but China did. And so it kind of escalated. Remember, we were like, that was 140% tariffs at one point. So that basically stopped all trade in its tracks, except for the stuff that was excluded. But anyway, so huge decline in imports from China last year. Mexico edged up a little bit, and then also anything AI related was way up. So like computer and electronic products, way up last year. Again, it's all related to the AI boom. I'll skip that in the interest of time. So on the outlook, we're seeing Texas businesses. This is from our surveys, and I actually brought some cards that are out there on the table. I was really hoping you guys could pick up one of those cards. And Donald, my colleague Donald has one. There's a QR code on there. Scan that, sign up for our surveys. If you're an executive in a Texas business, we'd love to have you in our surveys. So every month we survey about 600 businesses, and usually about 350 respond. And so this is kind of what they're telling us on their outlook. So, and it's looking, like it's going up, the lines are going up. It's the company outlook, whether it's investment and capital expenditures, the future business outlook is improving according to our surveys. You can also see, this is where we got the roller coaster theme from. You can kind of see last year, it was like a lot of highs and a lot of lows. That was the roller coaster theme. I think my co-author there, Robert, he like drew a little roller coaster car for fun, so you could kind of visualize it. Well, Six Flags is right over here, so. This is our forecast for 2026, 1.1% growth. That's employment growth in Texas, and so that's what, then that also shows you, like, we had very little growth last year, so this is going to be a bit of a pickup. And again, like I mentioned, it's going to require people coming off the sidelines. So, if you know anyone, encourage them to join the workforce. I'm going to skip ahead to I'm going to conclude, and then maybe we have time for questions, a couple minutes. Great. So if you feel like the ride's over, lift the bar, but I don't know, like every day it's kind of an open question. You may want to keep the safety bar on you. So Texas grew in 2025, but it really didn't add many jobs. So it added very few jobs. And the interesting thing is, if you remember that we haven't had that kind of situation since 2002, 2003, the recovery from the high-tech bust is the last time like we had, really no job growth but positive GDP growth. So it's been a while. Again, there's not a lot of signs of broad-based slack. The unemployment rate, the headline rate is really low and stable. We expect job growth to pick up in 2026, but productivity gains are still suppressing hiring, right? We have high productivity. Once we get the AI gains in the productivity number, those are going to be, drive that even higher. And then, of course, at the same time, the immigration crackdown is limiting labor supply. AI boom, we talked about the fiscal stimulus. Those are all things. We mentioned the World Cup. And lastly, so going forward, really, the other thing that we're watching is really, again, back to the safety net cuts to Medicaid and SNAP, in particular, those, and also to universities and schools, there's some funding cuts there as well. So those are the things that we're watching, because in the long run, what really drives growth is human capital and technological innovation. Human capital is a big part of what drives growth in the long run. So, and that's all I had, but I'm happy to take your questions. Joe?
Why does Virginia leading the industry in power plant or data centers?
I assume because it's Washington, D.C., right? I mean, it's a great question. I don't actually know the answer. I just assumed because Washington, D.C. is there that, and they have, yes, I just assumed that was why. But maybe they have a lot of tech. I don't know. But I will find out. Yes, sir.
Does the drop in residential construction a function of interest rates? Will that get fixed as interest rates come down? Or
Yeah, the drop in residential construction, I mean, first high house prices, because house prices went up like over 40%, almost 50% in the pandemic. So we're much higher house price. And then on top of that, put a 6% mortgage rate or a 7% mortgage rate. And that really is hurting demand. So I think, yes, safe to say. The interesting thing was we kept increasing construction for a while despite that, because builders were buying down rates for their customers. But I think on the, supposing and assuming that within 2 years is kind of what they were saying in 23, within 2 years, interest rates will be back down. But they haven't come down because inflation hasn't come down enough. So inflation's still running 3%, not in Texas, but 3% in the nation, the inflation gauge that the Fed watches, and the Fed's target is 2%. So that's really that's the rub right now. So that has to be resolved. Yeah, that's.
How's the Fed handling the inflation data, right? Because that got a little weird starting last September.
Yeah, when in the government shutdown, the inflation data collection was interrupted, and so the October data is really not sure it even exists. So it's just we have to make assumptions about what October was, and kind of we've been doing ranges. So assuming it was this much off, this is the range of where we think we are, and so that's kind of how we're dealing with it. Yeah, sir. Yeah.
I've had a lot of friends and really smart people pontificate that AI is going to kill not just a few jobs, but a lot of jobs. What is your take on that? Is the Fed, you guys established a position, or are there ways to mitigate some of that impact?
All we've done so far is, measure what impact we're seeing so far, and it's really, and we actually have a blog on it on our website. Came out recently, and so far we're seeing, if you look at highly impacted sectors, from AI, and if you look at young workers, so anyone starting out in a highly impacted sector by the definitions that we have there in the blog, you can see their employment rates are way down. And so it's definitely a concern for particular groups. But honestly, and so, I think what we don't really know and we don't really understand yet how it's going to be, 2, even 5 or 10 years from now. I mean, I've seen, doomsday scenarios, people modeling, where at the end, within 10 years, all the people who own the AI capital have earned all the income, and nobody has any jobs, and then it just we're all going to live on universal basic income. Have you heard that theory? Obviously, that's way out there. And then you have the other, so I don't know. So far, the effect is very limited. So far in our surveys, about 5% of firms are reporting a net disemployment impact in Texas, 5% of firms, and that's it. So not a lot of displacement so far, but I mean, if you look at it, if you use it, I mean, there's, it's concerning, right? I mean, you're trying to, it's happening so fast, and the AI is getting so much better. So it's, this is the big thing to watch, right? Thank you.
Could you talk about the data you use that is affected by state policies versus national? I've got some information that says the rents are down 1% in Texas, but they're up 5.5% in Illinois and up near 4% in New York. And I bought gas for $2.34 and it's $4.50 out of California. So can you discern which ones are more affected by policy at the state level rather than the national policy? Which ones are more important that your office uses?
Of the most important data that we use, like employment and GDP, those are federal sources, BLS, and Bureau of Economic Analysis. The housing and rent data there's a lot of sources. But I think what we're seeing in Texas in terms of rents falling is because we built a lot. We had a huge multifamily building boom in the pandemic, and we're still absorbing that. And so our apartment markets are not a lack of demand, it's a lot of supply. But our single family housing market is actually a lack of demand just because of the affordability problems and the high mortgage rates. So I hope that helps. Yes, sir.
I was surprised that the job growth figure was so low. With 1,000 people moving into Texas, or whatever that number is a day, are they moving here and not working?
Well, it was less last year, so the number has dropped. I should figure out exactly what it is, but it's in the data there. So we were surprised too. So again, we have 0.1 for last year right now, but that's probably going to be revised. These revisions keep coming in. So I think right now we may be at 0.4, but even if we end 2025 around 0.4, 0.5, that's very, very low for us. But I think firms didn't hire last year because there's a lot of uncertainty about the economy. So uncertainty about tax reform, uncertainty about tariffs. I think it got better as the year passed, but that's those revisions will come later. So right now we're revised through third quarter, here through second quarter. But I think it was the uncertainty that made firms sit on the sidelines and kind of figure out exactly how the economy was going to play out with so many changes. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wait. Thank you so much for sharing your program with us. It's a tradition of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth to make a contribution in your honor to Rotary International's Polio Plus program, which we have been supporting for over 38 years. And because of this, more than 3 billion immunizations have been given to children around the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you. As we close our meeting today, we have several announcements. One, we have a committee meeting today, one committee. How appropriate is that it is the Finance Committee. Welcome and thank you to Montgomery Strategies, Cadence, now Huntington Bank, and the University of Texas at Arlington as new sponsors of the 2026 Richard L. Knight Rotary Minority Business Awards. So we appreciate their support. Remember to sign up, run right over and support the Cowtown Marathon or the 5K and run with Rotary. And next week, our speaker will be Dr. Karen Molinar, Superintendent of Fort Worth ISD, and I'm sure she will have some interesting things to share with us. I hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you next week. Our meeting is adjourned.